We'll now turn our attention to boxing, the upcoming fight on the 28th of July 2018. Dillian Whyte versus Joseph Parker. It's being held at the O2 in Greenwich. It's a fight for the WBC Silver Heavyweight title and the vacant WBO International Heavyweight title. It's a big fight for both. Parker coming off a loss to Joshua, losing on points. Dillian Whyte gunning for his first proper title shot. So, it's a huge fight for both. It's pay-per-view. They're headlining the bill. And I think their styles set up for an interesting fight. I mean, my first reaction is I just think points straight away. Wyatt is someone who's worked on his fitness. At the beginning of his career, he wasn't in the best shape, but he's really worked on it the last sort of 2 or 3 years, sort of 2 years really. And he's got into good shape. He's got good cardio now. He's got good work rate. Parker as well, he's gone a distance in a lot of his fights, so he's obviously got good cardio as well. I mean, Hughie Fury went the distance. I think when he won the title against Andy Ruiz, that went the distance. Obviously gone a distance with Joshua. So it's two durable guys that, there's punching power there, but I don't see either of them as massive punchers. I think they've got reasonable power, but I don't see them as one-punch KO merchants. I think both of them they don't want to give too much away in this fight, so they may be cautious. There's a lot at stake. Parker really needs to win to cement his position as one of the elite fighters in the division. And obviously, Whyte, he's got quite a good run going since he's lost to Joshua. He wants to keep that going and press forward so he can talk about the likes of Joshua in a rematch or talk about Wilder. Stay in those sort of conversations. That's what they both want to do. Stay in sort of the top five. The top sort of 3 or 4 heavyweights in heavyweight boxing. So there's a lot at stake. Looking at the betting, they've got it evens either way. There's not much in it at all. Whichever way you go, it's evens. And obviously Whyte's got the home advantage. So obviously Eddie Hearn cards are known to, how should we put it, favour the hometown fighter in the close decisions. So he's at home, he's in front of his home crowd. He's an Eddie Hearn card, which is Whyte's promoter, so you might say that leans to him, leads to his advantage. But then Parker on the other side is known to be durable. I think he put in, most people seem to be saying that Parker didn't put in a full effort against Joshua. He didn't look for the knockout, he wasn't aggressive enough. This is certainly what Whyte insinuated at the Gloves Are Off programme they've just recently filmed. I don't know if that's 100% fair. I think Parker did put in a reasonable amount of work rate. I think he did try. I know that he didn't look for many, one-punch finishers. He didn't hang his chin out and, go for it at close quarters as much as he could have. But I think it was a decent showing. I think he really was hindered by the referee. I know it does sound like an excuse. It's one that his trainer's thrown out there. It's one that Parker's mentioned in the Gloves Are Off. But, he separated the two of them at every given opportunity. And so that did sort of ruin the fluency of Parker's work. And, when he had some combinations together, it looked like, he might be generating some sort of advantage. The referee split them. So I did notice that. So we have to bear that in mind as well. But as far as this fight goes, for me, I think Parker has an edge. If we look at in terms of experience, if we look at the two records, let's look at Parker's record. He's obviously beaten Andy Ruiz. He's obviously beaten Hughie Fury. He's beaten Dibitrenko as well with a knockout. He's beaten Carlos Takam. Anyone who gets past Takam, we saw Joshua took 10 rounds to get rid of him, and even that was a dodgy stoppage. That could have gone the distance. So he's got rid of Takam. So he's fought from some decent fighters. There's an awful lot of other lower level fighters in there as well, I have to add as well. Guys from New Zealand, Razvan Kajanu springs to mind. There's a few names on there that aren't, big in boxing. Solomon Hormano, never heard of him. But he has got the big names as well, so he's got that sort of grounding. Dillian Whyte is coming off a win against Big Daddy Brown, Lucas Brown. And also, before that, he beat Hellenius. Before that, he beat a gentleman called Malcolm Tan. We have to go back to 2016, December 16, to find his last sort of notable win, which was the Chisora fight, which he went life or death. Chisora nearly done him. When I watched the fight, and I thought Whyte would win before, But I really didn't know what way the result would go after the final bell. They both put in a great shift. Chisora paced himself. Used a lot of experience, Chisora. Just knew, he knows that he's no spring chicken, and he just used all his experience, taking breathers at the beginning of rounds and then putting in flurries to win a few points off the judges. He just fought in patches, and he gave Dillian Whyte a hell of a fight. And if it wasn't for Dillian Whyte seems pretty savvy with the routes he takes. He knows he wants to go towards titles. So he's not taking the Chisora rematch because it's not really in his plan. It's not going to help him get towards his title shot. But, in terms of whether a rematch is deserved, it certainly was. Chisora nearly done him. And, well, the fight, it might still happen. Who knows? It's a few years ago now. A bit of heat has gone out of that whole Chisora Whyte situation. But, no, that was his last. That's what I would say was his last decent win. Before that, it's Ian Lewison. Sorry, Lewison's a good operator, but he still has a day job as far as I'm aware. He's not like a full focus professional. Then there's Dave Allen before that, who, although he's very game and durable, he usually gets beat by fighters who want to consider themselves as elite opposition. He just recently lost to Tony Yoka, the Olympic champion. So, yeah, if I look at the records or the big names, I think Parker's got an edge. I think Parker's fought slightly better competition. When we look at the actual big names, Yuri Fury, I know Fury danced around a bit in that fight. It was a bit evasive, and there was a bit of a song and a dance. Parker finally getting the points win, deemed to have put in a little bit more effort and aggression into the 12-round contest. But we've got Yuri Fury, Ruiz, Dimitrenko. He's obviously fought Joshua, gone the distance, and Takam. So there's 4 decent names there. When we look at Dillian Whyte's record, obviously he's lost to Joshua. It's a knockout in the 6th or 7th round. And then his other wins are Chisora. And then who else? Lucas Brown. Brown came in horrendous condition in that fight. And even if he came in good condition, he wasn't really, it was a WBC silver heavyweight title fight. Brown is not an elite fighter. He's just, for me, he's a name in this country. People know who he is. He has won a version of the world title before. But he's not a top name. So if we look at his record, he's got wins over Chisora, a loss to Joshua, and a couple of wins over sort of mediocre people, Helenius, Lewis and Allen. So, I think record-wise, Parker's got the experience, he's got championship experience, he's got experience of going 12 rounds with Joshua. As long as he hasn't let his sort of attitude dip. When you lose in a big fight, like a Joshua fight, I mean, he had no losses before that. He might have lost a little bit of confidence in himself. He might have, but I just think the sort of character Parker is very introverted. He has a good team around him. He has a good family structure behind him, that New Zealand background. I think he'll be able to keep his mentality online and put in a 100% shift. I don't think he will have lost anything mentally for that loss with Joshua. Whyte, I think he seemed to take a lot of positive about that Brown win. I know it was a comprehensive knockout, but I just, for Dillian Whyte, it's important that he puts 100% effort into this and realises that he's stepping up. As far as I'm concerned, Dillian Whyte is stepping up here. He hasn't really fought anyone other than the Joshua loss. Obviously, Joshua's, the best around. It's a toss-up between Wilder and Joshua's who's the best around. He's been in that sort of competition. But away from that, this is a massive step up for him. So he needs to really understand how important this is. He can't take Parker lightly. He's promising a lot as usual. On the gloves are off, he was talking a good game. He'll be looking for the knockout. He always says this sort of stuff. He's a good talker. But that doesn't really mean that's how the fight will pan out. So, for me, I just give Parker the edge. I think it could be points. I am concerned about the fact that Whyte has home advantage, and I am concerned about the fact that Whyte has a tremendous work rate and has good cardio, so he should be able to get enough shots in and enough combos off to, be in the fight at the end if it goes to points. But I'm just gonna go with Parker. If Parker can stagger him, maybe have a knockdown, and then keep his work rate up, use all his experience. He's been in more difficult fights than Dillian Whyte. If he can use all of that, draw on the fact that he can't lose twice in a row in England. He's lost to Joshua coming over here. He can't lose again over here. His stock's gonna go down. His stock's gonna go down severely. I rate him for taking on the challenge. Obviously, the paychecks are decent over here, so that's obviously affected him and his team's decision to take this Whyte fight over here. You know, fights for him in New Zealand, I doubt they're earning him a fortune. He's just made a nice check out of the Joshua fight. So obviously that's another reason he's taken the gamble, but he's taken it on nonetheless, overseas, fighting a major danger in Dillian Whyte. So, you know, in terms of the odds, there's nothing there, I don't think. If we look at the odds, evens either way, I think that's roughly right. I would have probably had Parker as a slight favourite, maybe, I don't know, 5 to 6. With Dillian Whyte at 6 to 5, but it's roughly right. I don't think there's any value there. It's just a coin toss. You know, you go which way you want to go, and there's no meat on the bone there. You might. I mean, the draw's interesting because I think there's a high possibility it could go to points. So the draw's interesting. 25 to 1 you can get on the draw. It might be worth putting 1 unit on that, just in terms of the betting value, but I'm not going to worry about value because there isn't any. I'm just going to worry about who's going to win. I'm going to go with Joseph Parker. I think it may be points. That's my betting recommendation. That's my prediction on this one. Please give yours in the comments. Please let us know how you think this fight's going to go and who you think will be the victor in the end. You can also comment if you think there's some value in the draw. I know it's very rare for there to be value in a draw in a heavyweight fight where there's a possibility of a stoppage and a knockout with the power on show, but I think it's decent. This is definitely a fight where points is in play, so who knows. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Enjoy the fight. It's going to be a big one. And I'll see you next time.